Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about Roman Polanski, who is a producer and filmmaker and actor. I actually didn't really know who he was, but my friend, actually my French-speaking friend, she's come from Quebec. She actually told me about his story and I was just shocked at this whole situation and how he's still allowed to make films and movies in Hollywood and stuff like that, because the things that he did are actually really scary and the fact that he's still free and winning awards to this day is actually really frightening. If you haven't heard the story before, buckle up because it's crazy. He's honestly up there with people like Harvey Weinstein and Woody Allen, people like that. Just creepy, says really weird things about young girls. So anyway, let's get into it. Roman Polanski was born on August 18th, 1993, and that makes him, today it makes him 88 years old. And he was actually born in Paris, France, but his family actually has Polish roots. He is one of the only few truly international filmmakers because of the fact that he has made films in Poland, Britain, France, the United States. He's actually a very well-decorated filmmaker. I'm sure most of you have heard of his name. I haven't because I didn't grow up watching Western movies at all. He returned to Poland in World War II in 1936, so he returned with his family back to Poland a few years before the war broke out. And his childhood was absolutely horrible growing up in World War II. Both his parents had Jewish descent, so obviously when the Germans invaded, they were all sent to ghettos at first. In 1939, they were sent to the Krakow ghetto, which somehow Roman miraculously escaped from, but his parents weren't so lucky. From what I read, his entire family tried to escape, but his parents were caught and they were sent to different concentration camps. So his father was sent to a place called Mauthausen in, is that right? Mauthausen. I'm so sorry to my Austrian friends, I don't know how to pronounce it. And his mother was actually sent to Auschwitz. And obviously Auschwitz is horrific. Well, all concentration camps are horrific, but Auschwitz especially was just known to be terrible, and his mother sadly didn't survive in this concentration camp. She was actually murdered. But his father did survive, and him and his father actually reunited after the war ended in 1945. But in that period of time, that period of a few years, life was really difficult for young Roman Polanski. He lived like a tramp. Actually, he told a story about how a few Nazi soldiers saw him in the street, and at this time he was disguised as like a Christian boy who was just wandering the countryside to go visit some relatives in another place, and he disguised himself as a Christian and everything, and they found him in the street as a tramp and they forced him to hold up a target while they shot at the target. So very traumatizing for a little kid, or at any age really, but very difficult childhood. But him and his father actually reunited after the war, and he was sent to a technical school, but he had no interest in education, traditional education. He actually was already interested in filmmaking because during the war he had gone to some Polish theaters, and at that time they were mostly just showing propaganda films, but he didn't really care about the propaganda at all. He just went in and watched movies anyways, and he took that with him. He actually went to a film school, so he dropped out of the technical school and he went to the Lodz Film School. Interestingly, the first few shorts that he created had nothing to do with the war. They weren't themed after the war or anything, even though it obviously had a huge impact on him. But after his debut films, he actually paired up with another Polish filmmaker and writer while he was in Paris named Gerard Brock, and together they made a bunch of films. And he made two films with Gerard Brock that shot him to notoriety, which was Repulsion in 1965 and Cul-de-sac in 1966. And those actually won awards. I think it was the Silver and Golden Bear Awards at the Berlin International Film Festival. And then he moved to America, where he made the famous Rosemary's Baby. Roman Polanski actually got married in America to a beautiful American actress named Sharon Tate. Most of you have probably heard of that name and probably heard of Roman Polanski's name as well because of the Manson murders that happened at Roman and Sharon Tate's house by the Manson family cult. After this horrific murder, Roman Polanski actually moved back to Europe to grieve his wife, and all this time he had maintained a stellar image in the news, in the press, obviously because after the murder of his wife, he was sort of seen as like a martyr. He was very grief-stricken in all of the interviews where they sort of talked about Sharon's murder, and he was very heartbroken. Obviously, anybody would be. It was a horrific murder. It was absolutely terrible. So people felt really sorry for him. But even at this time, he'd said like very alarming things about girls, and young girls especially, because the thing with Roman Polanski is that he doesn't seem to see a difference between very young girls who are not developed. They're basically children, and women. Like, he thinks that young girls, minors, are just women who are more naive and more attractive. He actually admitted in his autobiography that he had gone to bed with girls as young as 15 when he was a grown man, and this seemed to be made significantly worse after Sharon Tate's murder, because then he had nothing stopping him, and he would say in his autobiography that these young girls would help him grieve. Sometimes they made love to each other. He made love to these young girls when they were visiting him while he was grieving Sharon Tate, and sometimes he just enjoyed their company because they were naive and like fresh and pert and stuff like that. He literally said judges want to fuck young girls, juries want to fuck young girls, everyone wants to fuck young girls. Literally a quote. He seems to think that in these situations, these young girls held all of the power, and because they were so young and attractive, and they knew that they were charming and all of that, and he portrayed himself as almost like a prey to their charms. He was just this helpless old man who fell prey to their charms, basically, which was just a disgusting way of thinking. But anyway, in 1976, he actually took an assignment from French Vogue that required him to take pictures of very young girls as young as 13, and he literally described them as sexy and pert. And this is where he met his first victim, who was named Samantha Geimer in 1977. She was 13 years old. She also wrote an autobiography about this whole situation, and she said that at this time she was so young and so underdeveloped that her breasts hadn't even developed yet. She was flat, basically. So they took pictures. Polanski decided to photograph Geimer alone. He said that he told her that he wanted to shoot her alone because he thought that it would make her look more natural. He complimented her breasts several times. He even complimented her breasts again in his autobiography about this whole situation. And what's crazy about this autobiography is that no one's like forcing him to say all of this. He's just laying it out there that, you know, he's attracted to very, very young girls. After this initial encounter, he basically started to groom her. He kept in contact with her, and a few months after they initially met, he organized a second meeting at Jack Nicholson's house, who is a very famous American actor, to continue the photo shoot. And this is where the rape of Samantha Geimer actually happened. Basically, from his recounting, photographed her drinking champagne, and he instructed her to take off her top, and he gave her a quaalude. They began taking photos, and according to Polanski, she was the one who invited him to have sex with her. He said that she did it willingly, that they were both attracted to each other. There was this mutual sense of attraction, and he had sex with her after she got out of the jacuzzi where they were taking the pictures. He had anal sex with her as well as vaginal sex with her. According to Geimer, she did not want this to happen at all. She did not give consent to him. She told him to stop several times, but even she says that she felt pressure to sort of keep her mouth shut because she knew it was going to happen anyway, because there were only the two of them and she was already topless and so on. So she said that she did say no, she didn't want to have sex, but she also didn't put up that big of a fight. And she repeated that she did say that she wanted to stop, but she was also very afraid of Polanski because he was a lot older than her and he was the man in the situation, and she felt that he had a lot more power over her than she had over him and over the situation. So basically She says that he vaginally raped her and sodomized her because she also didn't consent to the anal penetration. It shouldn't even matter anyways because she's 13 years old, and that is statutory rape anyways. Even if she consented, that's still statutory rape. But his defense was that she invited him to do it. According to Geimer, after they had sex, or after he raped her in Jack Nicholson's house, she went out to his car and he drove her home. And later that night, Geimer told her boyfriend, and her mother overheard this conversation and overheard her crying. She had been crying since she got into the car, and up until she got home, she couldn't stop crying. And her mother actually called the police. Immediately the next night, Roman Polanski was arrested. From this point on, this is the part where this whole thing gets crazy, because the judge in this case that was initially assigned to this case is honestly just corrupt. Was very lenient on Polanski for some reason. I don't know if it was because of his celebrity status or something, but he initially gave him a very sweet plea bargain. Polanski initially was going to get away with only pleading guilty to statutory rape, which is the least serious of the offenses that he was accused of. The lawyer for Geimer didn't want her to be anywhere near the media fiasco that was going to go down, that they knew was going to go down because of Polanski's link to Sharon Tate, who is linked to the Manson family murder and that whole situation, and also because he was a celebrity at the time. She thought that the lawyer thought that Geimer was just going to be ripped apart by the press, because Geimer, at the time that Polanski allegedly raped her, she wasn't a virgin and she had taken Quaaludes before as well, so the victim didn't want to testify. Polanski went to a state prison for his mental evaluation, and he only served something like 42 days in state prison. The judge wanted to sentence Polanski to more time, and the judge actually informed Polanski's lawyer, whose name is Douglas Dalton. He told Dalton that he wanted to sentence Polanski to more time because he felt that people thought that he was being too lenient on a celebrity. Obviously, his lawyer told Polanski that, and Polanski 2 days later got onto a plane and left the US to London, and from London he flew to Paris, which he has French citizenship, but he doesn't have a US green card, and he's never been back to the US after that, and so he never served the additional prison time that the judge promised that he would sentence him to. So basically he served a few months in prison for the statutory rape of this young girl. Since then, he's won Oscars for some of his films, The Pianist, films like that in the US, and he never went back to US to get it. So Harrison Ford actually flew to Paris to hand him the Oscar that he won for The Pianist. In September 2009, Polanski was actually almost arrested in Zurich when he traveled to Zurich to accept a Lifetime Achievement Award in the Zurich Film Festival. They detained him at immigration. They placed him in custody, awaiting extradition to America, but he made bail and he was put under house arrest in a Swiss chalet that he owned. For some reason, this outraged a bunch of prominent celebrities, and a lot of them actually signed petitions for him to be released. People like Natalie Portman and Tilda Swinton and Isabel Huppert, Penelope Cruz, Harrison Ford, all of these people signed a petition against his arrest, and they gave a bunch of excuses for his behavior. They said it was a long time ago, and Whoopi Goldberg, I think, said that it wasn't rape, it was statutory rape, and so he should be allowed to go free. In the end, Switzerland ruled against the extradition, and Polanski did go free. Since then, more victims have come forward, and in all there are 5 known victims of Roman Polanski, including Geimer. In 2010, a British actress named Charlotte Lewis said that he sexually abused her when she was 16 and on the set of his movie Pirates. Then in the same year, a woman named Robin M. also alleges that Polanski raped her or assaulted her as a child. The 4th accuser was an actress named named Langer. She says that he contacted her through her modeling agency, and he told her when she was 15 that he was interested in casting her in a movie. When she went to visit him, he raped her in his home. He then called her up after the rape happened, and he said that he was going to be more professional towards her this time, that it wouldn't happen again, but it did happen again. In the set of a movie that he cast her in, she was raped by him, and the most recent accuser is someone named Bernard. Bernard came out recently because she said that she was inspired by the downfall of Harvey Weinstein. She alleges that she was molested by Polanski when she was 10 years old in 1975 when they were on the set of a photo shoot, and he told her to take off her clothes and then molested her. Although none of these other accusations have gone to court or anything like that, it sort of suggests that this guy is a repeated offender, and the fact that he was locked up for like a little bit, a few months, put under house arrest for an additional few months, but in the end he really got a slap on the wrist for repeatedly raping young actors and models who he was working with. And it's just really scary how prevalent this sort of thing is in Hollywood. We've seen a lot of them now: Harvey Weinstein, Woody Allen, all of these different people. And Hollywood is such a scary place because everybody sort of like covers up for everybody else, from what I can tell. Like all of these celebrities that signed a petition against his arrest, I don't know if they wanted to keep like good relations with this guy or whatever, but yeah, it's just really disgusting, and I am never going to watch a Roman Polanski film. I actually heard his name before from the whole Sharon Tate situation, but I didn't know that this was his history and he'd done all these terrible things. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. If you liked it, please give it a like. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video.